Welcome back. We're just about to begin our second segment, speaking speaking about autism and how the community here at LaSalle is coming together and addressing the issue of autism and how it affects our children, our families, our communities. With us here now is Dr. Evelyn Klein. Evelyn is a faculty member here at LaSalle in the Speech Language Hearing Science program, and has a great deal of experience also with ASD, autism spectrum disorder, and is here to share some info with us as well and some insights.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Evelyn. As far as the speech, let me see if I can get the Speech Language Hearing Science program. Can you give us a little bit of an overlay of what exactly is happening now at LaSalle with the program and how that relates to ASD?
Yes, certainly. We're very fortunate that we have a clinic that is on site, that is functioning, that graduate students can obtain experience working with children with developmental disabilities as well as autism. Okay. And we have a clinic director, Maureen Costello, who is a certified. Everybody who does supervise here has to have their certificate of clinical competence, which is a requirement by ASHA, the American Speech and Hearing Association. So we provide a very thorough program where we work with students and they work with families and children who are on the spectrum, in addition to other disabilities and adults too.
Excellent. Excellent. I know one of the things that when I go to conferences and so on with ASD is that speech is such an integral part of working with children on the spectrum, not only from just the semantics and how they produce the actual sounds and so on, but how it's incorporated in their daily lives, the pragmatics of speech. And I think it's absolutely wonderful that you're able to bring that experience to the table and focus it specifically with children with developmental delays and autism specifically. I know there aren't enough of you to go around. So.
That is very, very true. That is true. What we're doing is really teaching our students how to work in the three primary areas for children with autism, which is specific language impairment. Yes. So they may have difficulties, well they do. Some children are nonverbal, but with semantics, which is the meaning and using words for their intention, their vocabulary. Also the syntax, putting words together, being able to get your needs met. So we do a lot of work with that. Pragmatics is another area where we really focus on having children learn to interact. Social communication is very key for children on the spectrum, and it's a primary area of deficit. And in addition, we also work on restrictive and repetitive behaviors because children on the spectrum tend to have a focus in a particular area that they fixate on. So we're working in those three primary realms.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, it's interesting that you mentioned the social communication as well. It's as we learn more and more about autism, we're finding, traditionally there's been three hallmarks, of course, of symptoms that go into the diagnosis, and of course you mentioned the speech, the social aspect, and of course the repetitive behavioral aspect, and now we're starting to drift toward consolidating a couple of those areas, which is the speech and the social. So then there's this social communication aspect, and I'm wondering how you, just going a little bit off what we were planning on talking about, but how your experience might allow that social communication piece to come out, apart from what traditional speech services might entail, which is more the actual physical and production aspect of speech.
Well, you know, it really depends on the level. Each child is individual. So you have children who are nonverbal, which is going to utilize a different system. And we might be working with something like a PECS, a picture exchange communication system. Whereas other children who are able to communicate verbally may be working on something like a cognitive affective training program, something by Tony Atwood, and he has the CAT program, which is unique and effective with higher functioning children on the spectrum, such as Asperger's. So, but I think one of the things that people confuse a lot in the area is, if communication is the umbrella, there is the piece of speech, which is the production that involves voice and articulation and fluency. But then there's the other side, which is language, and that's the critical piece. With social interaction, you have to be able to receptively understand what people say, you have to be able to comprehend the words, and then you have to be able to either say single words or string them together so that you are producing a sentence to make your needs known, to have an effective conversation. So we run the whole gamut, but speech is different from language, but they all fall under communication as the umbrella.
Right.
You know, so children that we work with have different levels of ability in those areas. So we have to consider that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, we've spoken a little bit about the services and kind of how that plays out with developing communication. Of course, the next step is figuring out what all of this means, where it comes from, the research that goes into it. And I understand that you're involved with research as well here at LaSalle, and maybe you could give us a little bit of an overview of what you're working on now. It's
very fascinating. It's an area that is not autism spectrum disorder, but more on the developmental disabilities, but it does share some connection.
Okay.
And it's the area of selective mutism.
Okay.
So I don't know how familiar you are with that, but I'll just briefly. Selective mutism is a disorder that presents itself typically when children start school. And they are seemingly okay in the home, they communicate, they're verbal with their families, and when they leave the home, and it varies depending on where this will occur and with whom it will occur, but they completely shut down. And so they're mute. They don't talk, and we see it mostly in school. So it presents a real worry for families, and the children themselves have a lot of anxiety. So it's a communication deficit, but it also relates to anxiety.
Wow. Now,
I'm sorry. So I'm involved in a grant, and we include graduate students here within our department.
Okay.
And it's a research grant. It's funded by the Selective Mutism Research Institute out of Chicago. And this is its third year. And we're in the process of doing an efficacy study and also doing new procedures for assessment and how we use parents to help us. Okay. So it's very fascinating.
That's wonderful stuff. I mean, and as far as getting the information out there and disseminating this information, and the students have to be the foot soldiers, if you will, I guess, in that process.
It's such
there's not enough of you to go around, so how do you get all this information out there to them?
Well, I just got back actually yesterday from the Anxiety Disorders Association of America. I was presenting there in New Orleans. I have students that put together posters and present at the American Speech and Hearing Association almost every year since we've been doing this project. And so I think it gives students a great experience, and we're getting good information that's going to help a lot of families.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Now, as far as I'm going to throw out a quick question, as far as a family or a child that you've worked with that kind of tugged at your heart a bit, or may be someone that you kind of think about before you go to sleep at night. Who knows?
That's really easy.
Okay.
In fact, I'm going to be presenting at a conference here at LaSalle the end of April with the mom who has also presented with me. I teach a graduate course on autism spectrum disorders here at LaSalle, and she's come to present in my class, and she has a son with high functioning autism, with Asperger's. And so this was a little boy. I started working with him privately in my own private practice when he was 3. Okay. And we made great strides with him. He was not able to communicate very well, using vocabulary inappropriately. And we worked a lot with some important strategies and actually taught him how to do pretend play and use a lot of visual cues to help him improve his language skills. And he's doing very well now. He's actually in 3rd grade. So when I think about him and I think about the mom and working so closely, collaboratively with the family, it was a great experience and it was a great success. So I think about them.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Evelyn. I think that's, there's some pearls of wisdom there and experiences that are just unmatched in many ways. I know we also have our moments, but to have those so near and dear is very important. We're going to be back in just a few minutes. Thank you so much to Evelyn again.
Thank you.
With Dr. Carol Petrilo and Robert Mack, and discussing the new ladder program and the facilities developing.